The people who returned to Israel from their Babylonian exile faced a number of problems, a number of challenges. Yesterday, we saw that they had a job determining who was actually to be included among them and who should be excluded as outsiders. Again, this may sound strange to our ears, but it really was a critical task. Now, with that issue more or less sorted out, came the second great task, rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. After all, Jewish life in that day and age revolved around the institution of sacrifices and offerings at the temple. When the Babylonians destroyed the temple, there was a major crisis of faith for the Jews. Could they even be considered a distinct people if the center of their common life no longer existed? Well, with the help of prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, they sorted out that question and realized they still could be a people. But now that many of them had returned, the question of the temple loomed large. And as we will see, it was a hugely emotional event. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Friday, January 7th, 2021. I guess we've always celebrated events like groundbreakings. Building a new building, whether it's a home or an office building, is cause for hope in the future. It's a time of eager excitement and expectation. There are traditions along the way that are moments of celebration. At a groundbreaking, people ceremonially dig up a first shovelful of dirt. For commercial buildings, there's a topping off ceremony where a tree is often placed on top of the unfinished building when the structure has reached its highest point. Then, of course, there is the long-awaited day when a building is completed and ready to be occupied. For commercial buildings, there is usually a ceremonial cutting of a ribbon to mark the occasion. For homes, there are several ways to celebrate, including the gifts of bread, wine, and salt, or perhaps a new Bible. But however we mark these occasions, one thing is clear: they are important occasions in our lives. But no occasion could have been more important in the life of Israel than the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. The returning exiles had not only the permission, but the decree of the Persian king Cyrus to rebuild. It took some months before they got to work on it, and the book of Ezra indicates that they started with just a bare altar outside. But in today's reading, work begins in earnest. Here's how the book of Ezra describes the event. When the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the priests in their vestments were stationed to praise the Lord with trumpets, and the Levites, the sons of Asaph, with cymbals, according to the directions of King David of Israel. And they sang responsively, praising and giving thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever toward Israel. And all the people responded with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and the Levites and heads of families, old people who had seen the first house on its foundations, wept with a loud voice when they saw this house, though many shouted aloud for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people's weeping. For the people shouted so loudly that the sound was heard far away. You can pick out here signs of the usual celebrations to mark the event. Priests in their vestments, trumpets being blown, cymbals crashing, and the people singing together a hymn of praise. But it is the description of the people's reactions that is so poignant here. Some shouted with joy, while the oldest among them, those who were old enough to remember the original temple, wept, so that the sounds of laughter and the sounds of weeping were indistinguishable from one another. This event was so profound on so many levels. It brought to mind for the older people bitter memories of the first temple's destruction and their exile to Babylon. but it also marked the excitement that comes when the future is literally being built. But then again, what else would we expect on such a day? Many of our most significant days do bring a funny mix of joy and sadness, even at such joyful occasions as weddings and baptisms, when we remember those who are no longer with us because we are parted by death. Joy and sorrow have a way of being wrapped up together so that sometimes we don't know where one starts and the other ends. Tomorrow, the rebuilding project runs into trouble. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.